Helen's obsession with order keeps her in constant motion, orchestrating everything domestic work in the family, and making sure everything appears pristine to the outside world. Peter, Rowan's father, is a devoted physician, juggling the pressures of work while striving to be a good husband and father. Their family seems perfectly normal, but Rowan hints that not everything is as it seems. Rowan has a teenage sister, Clara, who stands out for her outspoken and rebellious nature. The young lady is a passionate vegan. Despite her strong convictions, she is also the life of the party, charismatic and full of energy. She easily draws people to her. Rowan describes himself as quieter, an introverted photographer who keeps most of his thoughts to himself. He hasn't yet come out as gay to his family. The idea of sitting his family down to discuss or reveal such an important fact about his life is not very encouraging. Besides, it's barely a secret. Everyone pretty much knows. The Radleys' suburban tranquility soon unravels. After a fateful night changes everything. It all starts at Peter's birthday party, an event that brings together neighbors, friends, and colleagues. The house is filled with laughter. The atmosphere outside is tender and light, and the clinking of glasses is heard all over the place. Helen floats through the rooms with a practiced smile, making sure every guest feels at home. While the adults are busy with polite conversations and sharing jokes and wine, Clara and her friends sneak off. Rowan follows them quietly behind, but not without his camera, which he takes everywhere with him. The group of teenage friends is seeking a different kind of excitement. Rowan, true to his nature, continues to linger on the periphery of the group. He documents everything with his camera, snapping candid shots of laughter and joy, capturing the vibrant life his quiet demeanor often keeps him apart from. Clara, on the other hand, throws herself into the chaos, dancing and joking with her friends. Her energy is infectious, and it's clear she is used to being the center of attention. But the carefree evening takes a sudden turn when Clara slips away from the crowd for some air. The evening feels eerie. The sun is slowly setting, with shadows stretching across the atmosphere as Clara walks. Suddenly, she senses a presence behind her and starts to feel the hair on the back of her neck rise. She looks around, but there's nothing in sight. Her heart is pounding. She can't help but feel something lurking. Before she can fully process her fear, a classmate of hers jumps in front of her from the forest. He has this smirk on his face that is far from harmless. For a brief second, she lets out a breath of relief. She's at ease to find out that it's just her classmate. Her comfort begins to fade away when she realizes that the young man has sinister plans. The young man's countenance suddenly shifts from playful to predatory, and his advances quickly become threatening. Clara's playful confidence disappears, replaced by growing panic as she realizes he won't take no for an answer. She tries to escape, but he chases her, his grin twisted with excitement. He corners her, pressing her against a tree. His grip is firm. Clara feels powerless, and in that moment, time seems to stand still. Then, something unexpected and terrifying happens. From nowhere, adrenaline surges through Clara, and she strikes back. The force of her punch is unlike anything she could have imagined. She pushes the boy, and he lands heavily on the ground. The young man is stunned. He looks at the woman in front of him, and she's suddenly not the same anymore. Something in Clara has taken over. With a speed and hunger that defies explanation, she jumps on him. She overpowers him and bites into his neck, tasting blood for the first time. Stuart lies beneath her, helpless. His screams echo through the silence, desperate and fearful, but he doesn't have long to plead for mercy. The life drains out of him, leaving Clara covered in blood. She finally lets go of him, but it's too late now. His body lies lifeless on the floor. Clara is horrified by what she has done. She can't believe her eyes. Fortunately, Peter and Helen arrive at the scene. Their faces are frozen in shock at the sight of their daughter standing over a lifeless body. Helen's hands shake as she stares at her daughter covered in blood. Peter, on the other hand, is beyond shocked. His medical training all these years hasn't prepared him for this kind of horror. They panic, unsure of what to do, but Helen quickly regains control. She ushers Clara back into the house, her mind racing with excuses. On their way upstairs, they run into one of the party guests. The man sees Clara's blood-streaked appearance. His eyebrow furrows, suspicion etched on his face. Helen fabricates a lie about a paintball game gone wrong, dragging Clara away before any more questions can be asked. Peter, meanwhile, is left with the grim task of disposing of the body. His mind races as he contemplates the enormity of the situation, but he knows they have no choice. When things settle down, the family gathers together to discuss. There's so much to talk about. Peter and Helen reveal a truth they have kept from their children for too long, something that should never have been a secret in the first place. The Radleys are vampires. This sudden news shatters Rowan's world. He lashes out, demanding to know how his parents could have hidden something so monumental. Clara, still in shock from her violent outburst, sits quietly, processing the whole situation. Helen explains that they are abstainers vampires who have chosen to live without feeding on human blood. They have lived like humans, suppressing their instincts, in hopes of leading a normal life. Rowan feels betrayed, angry that his parents never trusted him with the truth. The revelation leaves him feeling even more alienated. A lot is happening fast, and the whole situation is pulling the Radleys' perfect family apart. Helen and Peter are distressed. They need help and only one person comes to mind. The next morning is tense. The Radleys pretend to carry on as usual, but the undercurrent of anxiety and rage is palpable. Clara feels betrayed, furious that her parents let her grow up in ignorance these years. How could they hide such an important truth from her? But then, breakfast is interrupted by a certain someone. Peter rushes to the door, swinging it open for his guest. At the entrance of the house is Will. Will, his twin brother, has answered his desperate call for help. Despite being identical twins, the stark contrast between them is astonishing. Peter embodies the quintessential family man. But Will? With his leather jacket and jeans, he exudes a raw energy. His piercing gaze commands attention, and his words, laced with sarcastic humor and sharp wit, can both amuse and provoke. Will and Peter are mirror images in form, yet worlds apart in spirit. Will's arrival introduces a wild energy into their controlled household. Helen is visibly uncomfortable with his presence, unable to hide her unease, but Peter is too worried about Clara to care. Peter introduces Will to Rowan, who is surprised to learn he even has an uncle. Will's larger-than-life personality captivates Rowan, offering him a glimpse of what life could be if he weren't always trying to fit into the box his parents had constructed. Rowan looks at his uncle, and he sees that though he is Peter's identical twin, Will is everything Peter is not. Will is rebellious, dangerous, and full of dark charisma. He wears a leather jacket and exudes confidence, his eyes flashing with sarcasm and mischief. Will wastes no time taking charge. He has a look of certainty in his eyes, as if assuring Peter that he'll handle the situation. Helen reluctantly hands Will a map, marking the spot where the body lies hidden, and he leaves to dispose of the evidence. Helen goes to meet Will later, driven by the need to make sure the body is gone. She finds him smoking a cigarette near his trailer, and an uncomfortable tension hangs between them. It's revealed that Helen and Will had an affair years ago, a secret she has struggled to move on from for so long. Helen insists that his presence now is only for Clara's sake. What was between them remains in the past, but the smirk on Will's face suggests otherwise. The smug look on his face sends shivers down the woman's spine. One can never know with Will. His thoughts, his plans. The man is simply unpredictable, which makes Helen feel more and more unsettled with him being in their house. Helen insists that Will's visit is solely for Clara's sake. What happened between them is in the past and will remain that way. She has started a family, and they are her only priority. Helen has moved on, and she expects Will to do the same. The woman storms off, wishing she had never come to see him in the first place. Meanwhile, word spreads about Stuart Harper's disappearance. Jared, Evan's father, is the first to hear of it. A former policeman turned paranoid conspiracy theorist, Jared is always on edge, especially when it comes to his son's safety. When he overhears a police officer talking about the possibility of foul play in Stuart's case, his paranoia intensifies. He begins to suspect that the Radleys are involved. Evan, unaware of his father's growing obsession, continues spending time with Clara. The two have a close bond, but Clara is struggling to suppress her vampire instincts. The guilt over what she did to Stuart haunts her, and she fears that she might lose control again. When Evan confides in her about his family troubles, she listens but feels helpless, unsure of how to reassure him when she can barely control her own turmoil. Evan visits the Radleys' home often, and one afternoon, while waiting for Clara, he wanders into Rowan's room. He's fascinated by the photos Rowan has taken, each image capturing moments of beauty and isolation. Evan has always admired Rowan, sensing there is more to him than his quiet exterior. The room feels like an extension of Rowan's soul, mysterious and full of hidden depth. Evan doesn't stay long though. As soon as Clara returns with ice cream, he departs with her. Rowan watches him leave, hoping he could have stayed a little longer. It's no secret that Rowan has a crush on Evan. Everyone can see the sparks in Rowan's eyes whenever he sees Evan, but comfort is fleeting. Trouble soon comes knocking on the Radleys' door in the form of the police. They have some questions for Clara about Stuart. The authorities know that Clara was the last person Stuart was seen with, making her a suspect in this case. The young lady tries to stay calm, but then she lets slip a detail she shouldn't have mentioned, that Stuart is no longer alive. The pair of police officers lean in closer, their faces etched with suspicion. No one had mentioned Stuart's demise. The interrogation is beginning to spiral out of control, a nightmare for the Radleys. But a glimmer of hope emerges in the form of Will. With a calm, almost eerie precision, Will takes charge of the situation. He controls the minds of the two officers, weaving a false reality where Clara is entirely removed from the case. The officers leave with their minds clouded by the illusion. Clara is left stunned, yet relieved. That night, as Peter and Helen prepare for bed, Peter reflects on how distant they have become. He longs for the days when their marriage was full of passion, but now they feel like strangers. Their relationship feels irreparably fractured, and he doesn't know why. Outside, the sound of a loud engine interrupts them. The The couple are just about to retire to bed when there's a loud engine rumble coming from outside. Will's antics are no secret. They wonder what he might be up to now, but what they don't know is that Rowan's in the vehicle with him. Meanwhile, Rowan continues to drift further from his family. He has developed a strange camaraderie with Will, and the newfound freedom he experiences is intoxicating. Will takes Rowan out to a club. The young man has never been in such a place full of energy and life. Here, Rowan finds himself letting loose in a way he never has before. The loud music and flashing lights make him feel alive. This is unlike Rowan, to be enjoying crowded spaces. But something in him is captivated by the atmosphere. The vampire urges are strong, and Rowan's internal struggle is becoming harder to control. He spends more time with Uncle Will, drinking more than he should. Peter's fear for his son heightens. Will is such a heavy influence on him. Rowan, who has always been reserved, is now drawn to Will's world of thrill-seeking and rebellion. Peter becomes increasingly concerned as he watches his son fall under Will's influence. Rowan's behavior changes. His excessive drinking and sudden carefree attitude are concerning. Peter fears how much of an impact Will is having on his son. When Peter confronts him, Rowan lashes out, wishing aloud that Will was his father instead. Peter is devastated, left reeling from the pain of his son's rejection. Was inviting Will over a mistake? He had done so to save Clara, but how could he be losing Rowan? As tensions rise, Jared's suspicions about the Radleys deepen. He finds evidence linking Clara to Stuart's disappearance. Jared takes this evidence to the police, however. He doesn't get the reaction he would have hoped for. Immediately, he mentions the name Clara Radley to the two police officers, the same pair that had visited the family earlier. The moment the police hear him say her name, they begin to laugh at him hysterically as if he has cracked a joke. The man is taken aback by their reaction. The pair of officers give no explanation as to their sudden burst into laughter. However, they don't stop cackling. Feeling uncomfortable, Jared hurries to leave. Fueled by utter desperation, Jared becomes increasingly unstable, to the point where even Evan starts worrying about his father's mental state. Evan confronts Jared one evening, shocked to discover a crime board filled with photos of him and Clara. It's covered with pictures and names of possible suspects, and of course Clara's name is boldly written. The man has pinned everything together in a chaotic web. On seeing this, Evan fears for his father's mental health. His dad is spiraling, and he doesn't know how to help. The sight of his father unraveling pushes Evan to the breaking point, and he angrily demands that Jared get a grip on reality. Jared tries to explain that he found fingerprints matching Stuart's glasses to a plastic cup Clara had thrown away, but Evan doesn't see that as out of the ordinary or suspicious. Of course, Clara's fingerprints are on Stuart's glasses. They were all friends. Matter of fact, Evan is sure that his own fingerprints are on the glasses as well. Maybe Evan is right. Maybe he does need help. Jared's anger softens into sorrow, and the two share a raw, heartfelt embrace. Evan holds his father tightly, feeling the weight of everything that has gone unsaid between them. It's about time Jared sought professional help. The next day at school, Clara and Evan notice a shocking change in Rowan. He's full of smiles. His usual shy demeanor is replaced by an unexpected boldness. He walks straight up to Evan, his heart pounding but determined. In front of his sister, Rowan confesses his feelings to Evan. This sudden declaration leaves the young man stunned. The courage it took for Rowan to step into the light after years of hiding in the shadows is awe-inspiring. Evan, though surprised, says yes when Rowan invites him out on a date that night. Rowan is full of butterflies as he begins to prepare for his date. On the other hand, Peter and Helen are having a long overdue heart-to-heart. Peter has discovered the truth about Helen and Will's past affair. Helen breaks down, explaining how Will was the one who turned her into a vampire, and how she has loathed him ever since. Her confession is raw and vulnerable. She assures Peter that he is the only man she has ever truly loved, and their bond slowly begins to mend. The emotional wall between them starts to crumble, and they find comfort in each other once more. Jared, however, is growing more frantic. His paranoia reaches a fever pitch, knowing that his son and Rowan are out on a date. The boy from the suspicious family he has grown to distrust. When Jared receives a cryptic text message from Evan saying only help, he goes into full-blown panic mode. Without a second thought, he grabs his keys and rushes out of his house to find his son. The night is full of twists and turns. First off, Rowan and Evan's date starts out well, but then Rowan's inner turmoil quickly rises to the surface. He begins to feel his vampire instincts take over, and he leaves abruptly to prevent himself from harming Evan. Alone and confused, Evan wanders through the arcade they were visiting, unaware that danger lurks nearby. He heads into the bathroom to drink the bottle of blood he brought along, but then the container falls and breaks. He has to suppress this monster in him. He can't hurt Evan. Rowan, terrified, rushes out and heads straight home. He arrives at Will's trailer and begins to call for him, but then Will is nowhere to be found. The man arrives later, and Rowan immediately opens up about everything he had to deal with all through the night. How he struggled to suppress his monster instincts and tried not to cause Evan any harm. Will claims to understand and offers Rowan a bottle of alcohol. The young man unhesitatingly snatches the bottle from his uncle's hand. As Rowan puts the bottle in his mouth, he notices something. He tastes Evan's blood on the bottle. This is very concerning. Why can he taste Evan's blood unless? In that moment of realization, Rowan immediately confronts his uncle. Will doesn't deny any of the accusations. In fact, he affirms all of it. He has attacked Evan. It was always bound to happen sooner or later. Will had marked out Evan long before now. He never understood why Rowan hadn't bitten him yet, but when an opportunity presented itself, he wasn't going to miss it. Rage, as he has never felt before, explodes inside Rowan. He swings at his uncle and begins to attack him. Their battle is fierce and primal, fueled by Rowan's sense of betrayal and fury. Rowan is strong, but he is no match for Will. His uncle is a seasoned vampire, ruthless and cunning. The man simply overpowers his nephew. Clara arrives home at that moment. She finds the two fighting and immediately rushes inside to inform her parents of the chaos unfolding, her voice shaking with fear. Meanwhile, Jared speeds through the streets in search of his son. He traces him to the bathroom of the arcade. His condition is worse than he could have feared. He finds Evan barely clinging to life. Blood covers his son's body, and the sight sends Jared into a frenzy. He scoops Evan up in his arms, rushes straight to his vehicle, and zooms off like a madman. People around just observe the scene in shock. No one offers to help. They just stand there motionless, and the man disappears into the night with his son. Jared speeds through the streets. With every glance he takes at his son's motionless body, panic kicks in further. He contacts the emergency helpline, but they cannot help him. His mind is racing and his heart is beating fast. Left with no other option, Jared now drives to the only place where he might find a solution: the Radley home. His desperation is palpable, and his long-standing hatred of the Radleys is momentarily forgotten in the face of his son's life slipping away. Meanwhile, back at the Radleys, the fight between Will and Rowan reaches a brutal climax. Will pins Rowan to the ground, strangling him with a cardboard sign. Rowan's vision blurs, and he feels his strength fading. But then, Helen and Peter arrive, their instincts kicking into overdrive. Peter charges at Will, tackling him away from his son, and the two brothers engage in a violent struggle. Helen watches, her heart racing, and in a moment of primal fury, she attacks Will from behind. Her strength surprises even her. It's a fatal blow, and Will passes out immediately. Helen has taken his life, but for a good cause. Just then, Jared arrives at the Radley home, cradling Evan's lifeless body. He doesn't trust them, but he has no choice. Peter and Helen rush to help, guiding Jared upstairs to Rowan's room. Rowan, still reeling from his battle with Will, knows there's only one way to save Evan. Evan lies on the bed in Rowan's room. With the little strength left in him, he looks over at Rowan. Despite the thick of the situation, he manages to draw a smile. Rowan draws comfort from Evan's calmness. As his eyes slowly close, Rowan proceeds to bite into his own wrist, offering his blood to the boy he loves. Evan's life hangs in the balance, and the moment is fraught with tension. But as Rowan's blood drops in Evan's lips, life enters him. He begins breathing heavily, and Rowan sits beside him the whole time, offering him the support he needs. Slowly, Evan finds life again. The Radleys' world, for the first time in what feels like forever, finds a semblance of peace. They bury Will's body secretly in their backyard. Life for the family is slowly returning to normal. Helen and Peter's marriage is renewed, their love stronger for having weathered the storm. Clara, alongside Evan and Rowan, works to get rid of Will's vehicle, erasing any trace of the chaos he brought into their lives. But not everything is healed. Jared mourns the son he has lost. Evan is alive, but he's a vampire now. The man who once hunted for the truth now finds himself grappling with a reality he cannot accept. Evan's transformation is both a miracle and a curse, and Jared struggles to reconcile his fear with the love he feels for his son. Despite everything, the Radleys begin to carve out a new version of normal. Rowan and Evan explore their budding relationship. They offer each other comfort. Clara, still grappling with her own guilt and power, puts it all behind her, ready to face what's ahead. Peter and Helen, having rediscovered each other, focus on holding their family together. The Radleys may never be ordinary, but they have found strength in each other. In the end, it's not about fitting into a perfect suburban mold, but embracing who they truly are, vampire instincts and everything in between. The battle for their humanity, it seems, will continue, but for now they have each other, and that's all that matters.